Today on the Income Flip podcast, I've got my friend Tyler Coon of the Savvy STR Agents. Did I get that right, Tyler?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, good. I got it right. I got it right, man. Dude, it's so good to see you. I think last time I saw you, we were at the gym where were we? We were in Las Vegas, right?
It's Caesar's Palace. Yeah, that's a great gym, by the way.
A super nice gym. My back was hurt, so you caught me like stretching. I was like, oh my God. Anyhow, man, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. And really, I want to explore your background and how you've built this incredible business. So why don't we just go back to the beginning and talk about how did you get into this wonderful game of real estate?
Yeah, I was in South America, I think. And at the time, I had shut down my business. We were doing lead generation and marketing and kind of the call center industry. And I just wasn't happy with that industry. When you do direct sales, um, we were doing, for instance, solar, home security, other home services. When you do direct sales like that, every Monday that you wake up, you have a quota to hit, or you're not going to get a paycheck. And that quota typically, like, it doesn't start over, like it doesn't refresh. Every week you start, you sell something, you make money, you're finished. And it wasn't kind of what I started referring to as like leaving a legacy.
Hmm.
And so when I finally shut down those businesses, I had a little bit of money in my pocket. Myself and my husband were traveling all over, who you met at Caesar's Palace. We're traveling all over South America and Asia. And I spent a lot of time thinking through, with my talents that I have today in lead generation and marketing, what problem can I solve and what business can I start that really could leave a legacy, something that I can build up, I can hire other people, and it can even start to run on its own. And it kept coming back to real estate. Because it said, all my research online said, real estate agents, their number one problem is lead generation. And so if you can solve that problem, you will be a great real estate agent. And thus you can create a real great legacy business where the business comes to you instead of you going out and always having to hunt the business. And that's where I got the idea to start real estate and moved to Asheville in 2019. And the way that I started my career was with $2,000 left in my pocket from traveling the world for 4 years. And I drove Uber because I had only ever been to Asheville one time before and had to put myself through real estate school. And I didn't know any of the neighborhoods, any of the streets, any of the directions, where the houses were, what they looked like, anything. I didn't know how to sell a house. And that's how I started, was driving Uber to learn the Asheville market and put myself through real estate school.
Wow. Before we jump into that, where did you enjoy spending the most time in when you were traveling?
Ooh, probably three places. The first one, there's an amazing kind of like hippie surfer beach town on the coast of Ecuador called Montanita. Absolutely incredible. You can sit on the beach. People come up and they sell, food and massages, and you can see the humpback whales, traveling down the coast right from the beach. They're jumping and breaching. There's loud music at night and a real party atmosphere. They sell drinks on the side of the beach. The little town is the roads are so narrow that there's no cars. It's all walking.
Hmm.
And so I love that town. Second one was Bonito, Brazil, which is Spanish or Portuguese for beautiful.
Hmm.
And they've got these beautiful eco parks, monkeys and toucans and all these birds. Just these springs, the rivers are all the way beautiful, clear, crystal clear water. You can see all the way to the bottom. Just absolutely beautiful town. And then third was Koh Phangan in Thailand, where we rented for a month for $800, a beautiful townhouse directly on the water. And I
Wow.
was just thinking to myself, like, my apartment back in Newport Richey, Florida wasn't this cheap, which is not a nice, super nice town or anything like that in Florida. And here we are on the most beautiful island with our scooters, like riding around Thailand. Yeah, three places I'll never forget.
I thought you were going to say when you talked about well, you just given me three new places to go visit. So thank you very much.
I hope you
When you
do.
talked about a hippie surfer retreat, I thought you were going to say Santa Teresa in Costa Rica, which is like it's like that. If you've never been, it's beautiful. I love it.
I have been. Yeah, I
Oh
have.
yeah,
I
yeah,
love yeah, yeah.
yeah. Well, tell me the differences. It sounds like yours, like maybe Santa Teresa is a little bit too big compared to the place in Ecuador. Like it might be a little bit, even though I think it's small. It's like Tulum, like 20 years ago, possibly.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like Montanita was kind of like that movie, The Beach. Like it was just very wild and crazy. Santa Teresa was seemed more yoga, down to earth, ginger shots in the morning, things like that. And Montanita was a little bit more wild and crazy, which for Ecuador, actually, Ecuador's a highly conservative country. So it's surprising that something like that exists there. But even the Ecuadorians kind of go there. That's where they go and let loose. So a little bit more maybe on the party side than like how Santa Teresa is a little bit more on maybe the wellness and relaxing side.
Very cool. Well, I love the wellness, relaxing side, which is probably why I like Santa Teresa. Okay, so let's get into this. You're driving Uber. You've got this idea. You're going to, get into real estate. Now what?
Yeah. So my first 6 months in real estate, every single deal that I put under contract terminated. And I got to this 6 months mark and I'm like, I'm not made out for this. Like, I don't know what's going on. I can't make any money doing this. I'm living in my parents' basement. We had just got back from traveling for 4 years. We spent all of our money doing that. And my business partner at the time, who him and I had done real estate school together, we kind of decided like, let's partner up. Why do this alone if you can do it together? We learn together. And I remember we were sitting in a Keller Williams conference room because they would not give us an office. They wouldn't give us a desk because we were brand new at Keller Williams. And so I was good at cold calling. That's what I was good at. So we started out by calling expireds. And I remember I gave him a list of expireds and I was typing to him on iMessage what to say. And he literally landed his very first listing on his very first phone call that way. And so we started real estate together, got to that 6 months mark, and every single deal had terminated. So I was on my way out. And he said, stick with it. You're going to do great. And then for my first year, I ended with the year with 12 million in sales, which I think for a rookie real estate
Yeah.
agent is pretty good.
It's really good. So,
Yeah.
so, so literally the next 6 months, you were just building that pipeline. You were building that pipeline. You put some deals under contract. They fell out, but then it just was like a tsunami the last 6 months. Is that what it felt like?
Yeah, and crazy, right? Handling all these transactions. You don't know what you're doing. I had never bought a house before myself, even. So I'm kind of going through this process with my clients for the very first time. Thankfully, I had great lender partners, great attorney partners in Asheville, people that really took me under their wing to teach me and mentor me and show me the ropes. Great people at Keller Williams to do the same thing. Absolutely love that company. And so it did end up working out really well. Had a great first year, very kind of weighted, right? Like very difficult first half and amazing second half. Made some good money, and then we started a regular residential real estate team in Asheville called Haven Homes, which does not exist anymore. But yeah, that's kind of how we got our start.
Okay. So how did you guys pivot? How did you transition to focusing on this STR niche?
Yeah. So March of 2020, my husband and I closed on our first house. And you know what happened immediately after that. I think we closed on like March
Perfect
18th
timing.
or some, I know, right? Perfect timing. And our idea with that house, thankfully, was it was a $330,000 house, which at the time we could not afford. I think we did a 5% down conventional loan on it. And so the great thing about this house was that the master bedroom was kind of like a suite. It had a bathroom, a big enough bedroom that it kind of had, a place you could put a TV and a little couch, a bed, and then it connected to the back porch. And then we had an in-ground pool as well. And we ended up Airbnb-ing that side of our house. So that was our first Airbnb. It was a homestay, and that's how we afforded our very first home. And so I always credit Airbnb with giving me our first taste of wealth, not from that, not from the income there. That was really paying the mortgage. But when we sold that house a year later, it was the first time we ever had $100,000 sitting in a bank account to our name that wasn't owed anywhere else, right?
Hmm.
It was my first six figures that I could hold on to and say, like, now what do I do? And so that kind of gave me a taste of this is what Airbnb and short-term rentals can do for people. And obviously, this also coincided with the short-term rental boom that happened in 2020. So I started selling a few short-term rentals here and there. Actually, my first short-term rental client was a doctor, and he was going to move to Asheville. So it happened by happenstance. And he ended up buying 8 short-term rentals with me that year. And I loved the process. He was in Myrtle Beach. I was in Asheville. I didn't have to, tour around a bunch of homes with him every day. I got on the MLS and I searched for great properties for him that could cash flow well, that could be designed well, helped him with all of that, managed the properties for him. And that's kind of how I personally got my start in short-term rentals. And I was addicted by that point. Both from our experience in the home, we started a short-term rental management company. We bought 2 more short-term rentals after that. And then selling these 8 properties to this one guy, it got me absolutely hooked.
Interestingly enough, you ran into this concept that I talk about all the time. It's like, why sell one house to one person every 10 years when you could sell 8 houses in 1 year to one person, right? So I love the investment side, whether it's short-term rentals or multifamily, because it's multi-transactional. Like you can get one client, build a long-term relationship, help that client build wealth through the process. It feels different than maybe traditional sales. Is that what you discovered? Was that like your unlock, your aha?
I don't know if it was that piece for me. For me, I think it was a little bit more on the side of I loved running the numbers. Here's how I always tell people, what I feel about short-term rentals. To me, it feels like a treasure hunt, right? I wake up, I am getting in the MLS, I'm searching for good inventory, talking to sellers, and I'm going on a treasure hunt because at the end of the treasure hunt is a pot of gold. And that's a great cash flowing Airbnb that can perform really well and help somebody build wealth. And so it's exciting. It's like one of those treasure hunt movies. It's exciting from beginning to end for me. And even today, I run a team of almost 50 agents now, and we're in 30 markets. We have 100 deals under contract at any point. And nowadays, my days are taken up with operations and marketing and partnerships and lead generation. But I still work with individual clients from time to time, and I still get that rush. I've done over 4,000 new client phone calls for short-term rentals. I've tracked it. And so the new client phone calls are mind numbing at this point. That can be very difficult. But the second I get that rush of, okay, let's start looking, and then my client is there with me and we go on this journey together, the rush comes back. It's just massive rush of adrenaline, going to look for their next short-term rental or their first short-term rental. So for me, I think that's kind of what ended up making me fall in love with it. It was a little bit later that I started realizing, even up until now, that, how much more scale can you get when you can sell one, client and, sell them 5 or 8. I even look at it from another lens, which is I can sell the same house over and over because we're so niched down. I have a house my client L bought from me for about 800,000, and she put a lot of money and work and effort into that property, and then we resold that for $1.85 million, and I brought the buyer on that one. So at this point, that $800,000 initial house has generated over $100,000 in commission for me, and every single person that's bought and sold that house is really happy with it. And now we've got it to a fund that's going to hold it for a number of years. And so, yeah, I definitely think that there's something to that science of scaling, of figuring out how do you work with one client and sell multiple houses, or work with one house and sell it to multiple clients. It's impossible to do in the residential space and side of things.
Definitely difficult to do. Let's double click on something, because for those that might be listening right now, or those that are building something, they might be like, holy smokes, wait a second. He started that Airbnb, like short-term rental business in what, 2021 on purpose? Like when did Savvy really start? 2021? 2020?
I think Savvy started in 2022 because at the time I was selling short-term rentals, but I was still kind of the everyman agent. I was looking at everything. And it was 2022 when I really decided like this needs to be a thing. If I only focus on this thing, I think I can double, I think I can triple. In fact, I think I can even quadruple. And I remember walking into my business partner's office, Galen, and I said, we need to fire the team. We have all these agents. We have marketing campaigns. We have like CRMs and all this stuff. I said, let's fire everyone. Let's start from scratch. Let's only sell Airbnbs. And I remember his face to this day. He laughed and he said, that's impossible. There's no way that you're going to do well servicing a subset, right? Airbnb investors is just a subset of investors, home investors in general. And he said, there's no way. And I said, okay, you take the team. I'm going to go do this thing. I even, I took the property management company, short-term rental property management company. He took the real estate team and I went and did it. And look where we are.
Okay. So let's talk about that, because seriously, dude, super impressed. From 2022 to now, you've got 100 properties under contract at any point in time. I think last year you did 375 million in volume. I think that's what you said,
something
right?
like that, yeah.
And that's fast scale. Like for a short amount of time. Like anybody listening, like that is super impressive. So walk me through the thinking, the evolution, the market, like walk me through that whole thing, and then walk me through where you're thinking you want to take this. Because I want somebody who's listening to this right now to kind of connect those dots. You what I call zoned a market, zoned it like deep. You went a layer deep, right? You went subset of real estate investors all the way niche down to, well, I'm just going to do short-term investors, which is going to be scary for most. You probably realized, okay, I can't just do this in Asheville. I got to do this in other markets. So how'd you build it, man? Walk me through that.
Yeah. Here's what I want to say to people when they think about potentially how short it was. It was short, but it was also really long. If you look at the history of Savvy, it was only mid 2025 that we really started being successful. And remember, I started this in 2022. So there was 3 years. And what did I do in those 3 years? I took 4,000 new client calls, multiple calls every day, and with individual investors. I remember I had a coach one time and he looked at my calendar and he's like, you have 40 calls this week, Tyler. He's like, that is unscalable. Do these in group calls. And I tried it for a little while. It was not personable enough. I had to get to know 4,000 people. I had to understand their goals, why they were doing this, why they were investing in short-term rentals, why they were on the phone with me, why my market. And that's what truly gave me a good understanding of short-term rental investing and who our kind of client avatar was. So it was not easy. It was, it was fast, but truly the faster thing was from 2025 to now. That's when we really scaled. And that was me learning people skills and leadership skills. So first I had to learn, how do I market and lead generate for these types of clients? And in 2025, I had to learn, how do I become the leader that can attract the people that can actually grow this company? Because I cannot grow this on my own. I cannot grow this one phone call at a time. If it was possible, I would have done that, but I didn't. And it was truly building a leadership team within my organization. And it was expensive as well. Last year, I spent over $1 million of loss in my own commissions from Asheville sales to build Savvy and build up a leadership team on hope, a prayer, and a dream that we would actually close something. We would actually recruit enough agents. We would get our marketing right and our lead gen right. So it was expensive. It was time consuming. There were parts that were mind-numbingly boring, right? Doing 4,000 calls, the same call with that many different people, and it's the same thing over and over and over and over. Sometimes I would have 8, 10, 12 calls in one day, 5 days a week, stacked, not taking any vacation. Very, very difficult. So for anyone listening, if you feel like your thing is not happening to you yet, just keep going. If it is starting to feel mind-numbingly boring, but you are seeing success, that is the key to mastery. And I have seen the short-term rental industry, so many people get distracted by boutique hotels, for instance, or get distracted by some other type of investing, and they end up losing it. They lose the thread. Mastery at its core is boring, because once you're a master of something, you should not really get like a ton of enjoyment out of it anymore, right? Once you have done something and so repetitive, so many times that it is mind-numbingly boring to you, that is when you are on the precipice of major, major success. Because what you're doing is you're doing the thing that almost nobody else is willing to do, which is do the mind numbingly boring thing that it takes to be successful. So when you start feeling that, do not get distracted by shiny object syndrome. That's what I really want people to take away from this episode. Keep going, keep pushing, because you are on the verge of greatness there. I don't know if you've seen the same thing, Rob, or what you think about.
Yeah. I mean, I was having a discussion with you prior to where I have some leaders that have been with me for a long time that I think they're bored. They're good at what they do. They're really good at what they do, and they're bored. And so what happens is you take yourself off the path of mastery, and it dilutes your focus. Your numbers start falling because you're now splitting focus, and it's dangerous. And by the way, guilty, guilty, right?
Yeah.
We've built multiple expansion locations in other markets, and each market is slightly different. But we started focusing more on the investor, right? When we first started expanding, it was hyper local neighborhood teams, and then I kind of like you, I pivoted and said, hey, that's not really doesn't give me the passion that I'm looking for. I love helping people build wealth.
Hmm.
Let's pivot and really help people build wealth through real estate. And I have a very particular model of how I do it by working with investors like you. And then that, interestingly enough, Tyler, that was for me around 2019 when I had that discussion with our leadership team about pivoting. But I didn't take the drastic step that you took, which was like, I'm cutting off all other options. We kept some of our offices that were still focused on hyper local neighborhood because they're doing well, right? And ultimately, it's kind of the same pattern, which is like pick something, become the best in the world at that thing, and just keep doing it. We call it ringing the bell over and over and over again. And I think where people get distracted, being guilty, is when they start adding some other business lines before their machine is fully baked, right? Meaning you start opening up the investment side of the business before your one core business is pumping out, let's say, 500 to 1,000 transactions a year. So you're just reinventing the wheel every single time. And I was at Alex Hermosi's office, and he talked about, right, he talks about the shiny, the lady in the red dress, right? Kind of the lady in the red dress from the Matrix, and that you have to be careful of that. And I noticed a pattern that I was doing, which was like you get a business to, let's say, $3 or $4 million, and then you go set up another business. And then you hit $3 or $4 million, and then you set up another business. And his point was, well, why not just have a business that's doing like $100 million, right? Why are you going to have lots of like $3 million businesses? And he's like, because the entrepreneur hits a ceiling of where their skill is, and their skill might be like 500,000, a million, 3 million, 4 million. And it's like, it's because they haven't learned the new skill to get it from 4 million to 40 million. And I'm like, damn, okay, that kind of resonates with me. I'm like, there's this pattern that I've done and that I can now look and see other people do. It's like, okay, great, you're a $4 million business. What will it take to get to a $40 million business? Before you and I jumped on this call, you said you wanted to do $1 billion in sales in 1 year, right? What that does is that it creates a lot of opportunity for you, right? When you start controlling all that type of real estate. And then the question becomes, how do I filter that opportunity? Do I get distracted off of the core thing? And so I want to get your thinking around that, because that's where you're going right now. That's the conversation we're having. So how are you going to filter that decision making? And maybe we'll on the fly come up with a good framework for each other on this, right? So what do you think, Tyler?
Yeah.
How are you going to think through this
It's very
to
difficult.
decide, do I
Yeah.
open up another arm? And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It's very difficult. to make those decisions, because the better you get, the more that you scale, the more opportunities come your way. I have an opportunity for an amazing joint venture with a large national property management company right now that's on the table. That's really interesting. And we're looking at this and going like, we can do $1 billion in sales there. I have, an opportunity directly with Airbnb and large condo buildings. And these things are happening just this week, right? Like, let alone the opportunities that'll come next week or happened last week or were presented last week. We've also started our own ancillary business lines, which we're moving slowly with, like mortgage and homeowners insurance. And so it is about that focus. I think for me, the deciding factor is going to be the capacity of my leadership team is really a big one. So right now, my biggest decision for the company is not to pursue any of those, but it's who do I hire for my COO? And I have some really decent candidates. This will be our first full-time, C-suite level position. And I'm really looking for someone that can juggle all of the balls in the air. That's kind of what I'm looking for. It's a difficult decision because I think that where my leadership team is today, they are all high-performing individuals. That's why we hired them. They're amazing people. They're really good at what they do alone. So that makes them really high-performing individuals. I feel where we are right now is our leadership team is morphing, is having this evolution from high-performing individuals to medium-performing leaders of people, learning skills like how to delegate, how do you juggle, 20 or 30 projects or marketing campaigns or recruitment trips or recruits all at once, and how do you do that while you're also handling a staff and making sure that we don't lose what we built before. So we're kind of morphing right now. And I view myself, this is not to put down my leadership team, I view myself as a medium performing leader right now as well. And then the goal is for all of us to morph and evolve into high performing leaders, not just high performing individuals. And so I think that that's where we are right now. And so that's what's going to end up making these decisions for us, is what do we actually have the capacity to do? What I tell my team all the time is, the more mistakes that you make, the more successes you'll have. So as long as we have made more mistakes than everybody else in the industry, all of our competitors, anybody that wants to be a competitor, as long as we're making more mistakes than all of them, that means we're going to see more successes than all of them. So try everything, do everything. So we will probably walk all of these paths, because I think ultimately there's a lot of this comes down to timing. We talked about, me buying my first property, getting into short-term rentals in 2020. The reason that opportunity was so great wasn't only because of me. It was a little bit because of me. And it wasn't only because of my team or because of Airbnb itself. It was also good luck. It was good timing, and the opportunity was there. So I think for me, what I'm going to do at the moment is remain open. Some of those things may become more or less interesting. When I had a conversation with Airbnb, we did kind of figure out that our business models don't work great together at the moment. We are heavily focused at Savvy on single family rentals. We don't really look at condos very often except for the beach markets, and especially not new condo buildings. And that's what they're really heavily focused on right now. Yet, do I change my whole business model? I don't think so. But what I am going to do is I'm going to walk the path a little bit and see what opportunity might exist, test the waters, try not to dedicate a lot of resources to it. So I think that is where a CEO really needs to operate, is in that trying things lane, trying new interesting partnerships and projects and marketing techniques and all those things. And so you have to be, as a CEO, an innovator, I think, and be willing to go in and get your hands dirty. I think too many CEOs hire a leadership team and then they decide like, well, that's it. I can be on the beach now. I'm done. Mm-hmm. And that is not it. Your team will maintain, maybe if they're high performing, they will maintain what you've got. They're not going to grow it in new and innovative ways. That is always going to remain your job as the CEO. So it's very difficult. If you could build a framework around this and hand it over to me, please do. But I think this is the difficult part of entrepreneurship, is testing and seeing what opportunities you take or not.
What's interesting is, I tell everybody, and this is not, it's not widely known, especially for people that are sales agents, and they're what I call super sales agents. They're really good at being a sales agent. It's like the trap of the sales agent. They're so good at it, they can't let go. And letting go means now sharing in commission and sharing in income, which might mean that you take less right? In order to take more, in order to build more. And then when you decide to do that, you're really going on a leadership journey, and that your business will only rise to the size of you as the leader. And a lot of people are just not prepared to do that. I hear you, you're there. You get that. You understand that. You realize that your bottleneck is going to be really your leadership lid and the leadership lid of everybody within the organization. You've kind of nailed the lead generation piece. So it's really like this leadership component. And then having enough patience with people to make those mistakes, which a lot of people don't realize. You've got to let them make the mistakes so that they can learn, so that they can grow, so that they can then like physically be in it. And giving people permission to fail is so important. I remember having this discussion with my daughter when she was 13. I said, baby girl, I want you to fail. And I want you to fail over and over and over again. Failing is how we learn, right? It is how we learn. And the faster you fail, the more successful you become. But there's this fear of failing. There's this fear like I'm not good enough as a leader, and then people stop and they quit. It's like, dude, you haven't built the skill set yet. You have not built in the reps of having those discussions yet. And so just know that the more we fail, you should be riddled with failure, right? Because that's where true success comes from.
I think
Yep.
when you walk into leadership, into being a leader, and that comes after you hire people and kind of make this decision that you're going to grow whatever it is that you're building. I think it's pretty naive to think that this is something you're going to be good at without stumbling a lot. Leadership is probably the most important skill that you'll ever learn, is how to lead other people, how to lead an organization, how to lead sales teams, how to lead anything. It is the most difficult skill to learn. And so I think people too often beat themselves up because they feel like a failure as a leader and they give up. You should fail as a leader. And if there's any leader out there, they will tell you how many times they had to fail. You look at, there's like these articles or social media pieces that go around about what the age that it took for Oprah and many other billionaires or large leaders of large organizations, what age it took them to actually become successful. And it's pretty significant. So if you're on this path in your 20s or your 30s or even your early 40s, you are still ahead of the game, I think. And so don't beat yourself up if you have experienced this quote unquote failure. Like, I fail every day, every single day I fail, and I fail way more than I succeed, I think. But that's my job, is to go through that and kind of steady myself when I go through those sorts of failures and immediately continue to move on. The more mistakes I make, the more success I'm going to have. And I truly believe that. And I hope that more people can adopt that mentality that you and I have there.
Tyler, when you jumped on initially, you talked about having this background of sales and marketing, which obviously is needed when it comes to the lead generation game, but that the real game changer for you was the recruitment side, adding a talented person in that space. Just so I understand and all the listeners understand, what does your operation staff look like, your leadership staff look like today?
Yeah, we've got our director of expansion, and Trish really changed the company. I think the one thing that I'm not great at is recruiting. I would have really good conversations with agents and talk to them about Savvy. And we had a great vision. We had great lead generation. We had all the same things we have today, but better today, but we still had them all. And, at the end of those conversations, I would, be like, yeah, I mean, your plan sounds great. It sounds like you're probably good where you are. Trish is just the total opposite of that. She is so sold on the vision, more than I've ever been sold or confident in the vision, which is amazing to have somebody join your team that's more sold on a vision that you created than you ever were. That it reinforces your belief when other people feel that and live that and believe that. If you don't have one of those people now, go out and find them. That's what will reignite the fire in you. So Trish is our director of expansion. I have Ashley Gillespie, who's our director of sales. Alana Earhart has been with me since the very beginning, over 3 years now. And she started off as my director of operations. Today, she's my director of senior business operations. And basically her role is to just roll up her sleeves and get involved in anything and everything. You need these type of people that can get involved in a new project all the time. If you're an entrepreneur and things are going to change, you're going to open up new departments. The person that's been with you the longest has to be a chameleon. They have to be able to buck the system. And I think that I've been really, really successful because I always have Alana around to say, why are we doing that? Does it work? Can we break it? Can we make it better? Why are we like, she asks the question, why are we doing it that way? And if you don't have somebody around that's willing to break everything, I think that that's a recipe for failure right there. So I've been really successful having her around because every time we open a new venture, she was on the call with the property management company because I'm going, hey, like we already have a leadership team over at Savvy. So if we do this JV over here with this other company, like I'm moving you here because you've been with me the whole time. We can recreate everything that we've recreated in this new JV. So she's been an integral part. My newer executive assistant, Dill, I've been looking for an amazing executive assistant for 6 years, finally found him. I would say to people, I've said so many things that are so important as an entrepreneur. The number one skill I think you can learn as an entrepreneur is how to hire people. It is a skill. It is not posting out on Indeed and like interview someone. We have a massively long process for hiring nowadays. And I have to attribute and credit Keller Williams with this process because we learned it from them and we still practice it today, despite not being at Keller for a couple of years now. And your interview process should be incredibly in-depth. That in and of itself is going to weed out the people that don't want to actually be on your team, that are just looking for a job, but they don't believe in your vision. These COOs that I've been interviewing now for over a month have been through multiple hours long interviews, 3 or 4 personality assessments. By the time we actually hire someone, they are going to be the perfect person, right? And they have just went through a months long hiring process. What better way to show like that person actually wants to be there and how to show them how serious their job is than you took all that time to interview them. So I'd say the number one thing you can do is hiring. And I'm still learning all the time, working on new personality assessments and trying to figure out how do we judge people in the very few hours that we have to meet with them before we actually hire them. And then you get married to them for the next few years, right? Sometimes you spend more time with them than you spend with your spouse or your family. So don't you think it's important to date a little bit? So I think, hiring is probably the number one key to what has set Savvy apart. And I can't say I'm perfect at it. Again, I think I've made more mistakes in hiring than I've made successes, but I'm willing to make those mistakes and hire people fast and go through the process and scale the company and spend all the money, people think I'm crazy. And if they looked at my bank account, they'd think I'm crazy too with all the money we spent last year to build Savvy. And then we ended the year insanely profitable because of our December. Like everything was staked on December. And I went in January and I spent all that money all over again. And we've lost $700,000 this year. And how many people are going to be willing to do that and take that crazy leap? We doubled our leadership team. We tripled our ad spend. We brought in a chief marketing officer so that we can start running our own campaigns. We've doubled our VA staff. And all of this is in anticipation to do the same thing that we did in the second half of this year that we did last year, which is quadruple our volume. And so we'll see if that happens, but it's expensive too. And it's risky. And every time it gets riskier and riskier, but we see the payoff every time. That's one thing that I think I'm the best at, which is I am just not scared to fail. I'm not scared to start at zero again. And I think the true test of an entrepreneur is like, can you start over at zero and do it all over again?
I love that. Not for everybody, but
yeah.
not for everybody. But I hear you. I've always red light, green light. Going back to the Keller Williams language, just like, okay, I'm going to invest some, see what the return is, invest some. It sounds like you're like, hey, this is going to work. And I'm going to put this pot, I'm going to put it all out there to make it work. And then you do everything in your power, because this is what I'm hearing, everything in your power to ensure that was the right decision, which is great. Like, I love that. Let's pivot real fast. Airbnb has been pivoting a bit. You're on the ground, right? Vacation rentals have pivoted, likes, dislikes. You started seeing everything on like social media, like Airbnb investing is dead, right? And like it's the worst investment ever. Obviously, you don't believe that. And obviously your clients don't believe that either. And so I'd love to understand, like, all business, by the way, anybody listening to this, all business is constantly pivoting. You're looking for where the newest trends, the newest colors, the newest designs, like all the rest. But like, how are you pivoting in this pivoting market, and where do you see it going, Tyler?
Yeah, I think for short-term rentals, I definitely did not ever believe in the Airbnb bust. We've been investing ever since, and I think why my clients trust me first and foremost is because we're making the investments right alongside them. We have spent um, let's see, 3.6 plus 800, so around 4.4 million we bought in short-term rentals this year alone between me and my business partner, Ashita. And so we're investing right alongside them, right? We're in May, and we bought 3 new short-term rentals this year. Every penny we have, just like at Savvy, every penny we've made in any of our investments up until now, we are reinvesting into those short-term rentals. We will have not a dollar left. In fact, we're looking at a spreadsheet going like, where are we going to get 600K from? To reinvest in those short-term rentals. So I think that's first and foremost, is like, if you believe in your vision and you're going to ask your clients to believe in it, you have to be there alongside of them doing the same thing, being willing. I think as far as the industry pivoting, we really see a huge momentum in experiential Airbnb, right? Designs like this, right? This is not a virtual background. I'm actually in Bill Faith's house in Montana right now, his super property out here in Whitefish, Montana. And, hand painted wall murals, large game rooms, really well designed movie theaters, outdoor amenities like pickleball courts, pools. We're spending $200,000 on a pool in our new 10,000 square foot place that we bought this year, to build a water slide into it and have a little,
Yeah.
sunbathing deck, and yeah, all sorts of crazy stuff. My partner Sheeta, who does all of our design, and she does design all over the country, built and I haven't seen it yet, but it's in process right now, a laser tag arena in one of the houses we bought last year. We launched it for summer, and then we redesigned it the beginning of this year. And so I think it's all about the experience and memories, core memories. And I don't think that this type of travel is ever going to go anywhere. Nobody's ever going to get bored of this type of travel, I don't think. Experiences are the way of the future. And as things like AI come in and speed up the menial work that people do, and that opens up more time for people to have, to travel, to work remotely, to be with their families, travel in large groups. I think this is an industry that's never going to go away. Certainly, I think that the mom and pop Airbnbs, where people bought something for 300,000, they put some furniture in it from Amazon and launched it and thought that they were going to become multimillionaires. I think that era is over. So if we were to call that the Airbnb bust, then fine, it did exist. But these types of properties, we're just kind of seeing the very beginning of this and what you can do here. Scottsdale is a really good example of what you can do. They have lazy rivers, and there are go-kart tracks at some of their short-term rentals and all sorts of crazy things. But the great part is you're kind of mixing the experience with the stay, which has never really been done before, except at large-scale resorts. But even then, the rooms are $1,000 a night, and you can sleep 2, maybe 4 people at max, right? Every couple needs their own room. And so these larger properties, I think this is really the future of single family short-term rentals. And we're seeing a lot of success in it. And it used to be where people were saying, you shouldn't invest this amount of money in design in a property, in a residential property. It's never going to come out on the appraisal. We have seen the opposite of that. We have seen it come out on appraisals. We bought a property for 900,000. We put 400,000 into it, and it refied for $1.95 million. And we have multiple case studies like that happening all over the country now, from St. Augustine to Asheville to Sedona. And so we are starting to see the benefit of this sort of investment in these residential properties, and then the cash flow that you get out of them. And the funds, Wall Street, they're taking notice of the returns that we're getting here. They don't want to come in and take the risk and spend the money on design and have the carrying cost of this. They're happy to take the lower return for the higher purchase price. Just like I told you earlier, we sold Elle's house. She bought that for $850,000. We sold it for $1.85 million. And those funds are here, and they don't want to come in and do all this work. I don't think they're ever going to want to. So I think that there's a good flywheel here. I think there's a good gold rush for at least another few years in this type of Airbnb investing.
Tyler, my experience has been the operating costs to run some of those. It's pretty expensive, right? Because they are, I mean, to run them well, I'm finding 45, 50% operating cost. Is that what you're finding? Are you able to reduce that cost for your clients? What's been your experience with these larger properties?
Yeah, the larger property is definitely expensive. We are, that's why I like the higher guest count, right? Because when you can sleep 26 people and your cleaning fee might be 600, $800 on our new 10,000 square foot place, it's probably going to be 995, $1,000 cleaning fee for a 10,000 square foot house. It'll have a spa, 10 bedrooms, a movie theater, a game room, the pool, pickleball courts. It'll have enough room. You could have a wedding on the property. That'll be $1,000 cleaning fee. But when you take that and divide it by the number of people that you have, even if you're at $2,000 or $3,000 a night, our goal is to host over 30 people in that property. You're at $100 a night per person, which honestly is still economical, even in these times, as you can't barely get a Motel 6 for that anymore. So the economics for us are still working because of the large groups. I also believe in the smaller properties for couples, but when you're going to invest this amount of money into design and amenities, you have to make sure that you have the large groups that can stay behind it to make the economics still work. If you have the smaller properties, and I tested this for my clients. I spent $300,000 on a small 1,100 square foot place to deck it out, make it amazing for couples. Our operating expenses there are very low because it's a really small house. It was a huge initial investment, but we've been getting $500 a night on that $300,000 house since the beginning, and now it's worth $600,000. So like we got the investment back out on that end, and the cash flow is still there. Most ADRs, average daily rates across the country, are still growing for Airbnbs. And so there is definitely too many listings. I think that there is a saturation point there, but not of these like really great, you know, highly designed and amenitized properties.
What name are you going to give those? Because they're not hotels, but they're experiences. They're kind of like mini hotels, but they're not mini hotels, right? Is there a name for them?
Bill Faith has coined the term super property, and I like that.
Super property.
I think it's nice and easy. I lovingly kind of refer to our properties as theme parks, and I always say like, we're building a theme park in a residential house, and that's what makes it difficult for appraisers to understand how to do their job and how they should value these things. But the good thing is the more and more that sell, especially these high prices, that is creating the comps. And so it'll become very easy for an appraiser to go, despite that being on the other side of town, that is also a theme park. And so it's very easy to start comping that. It is highly comparable. And so as more and more of these start selling, which they haven't really yet because most people are keeping them for the great cash flow that they're getting, but for various reasons, health reasons, family reasons, things like that, they do offload every once in a while, and we're creating the comps. So it's been a good run so far. We're continuing to invest. We really believe in it. Our clients believe in it, and it's been a lot of fun too. Like, who wouldn't want to own a property that has like a wall mural like this in it?
Yeah, a super property. I like that. The kind of that resonates with me. It's like a mini theme park, right? Like you said, we have this one property on 36 acres, and the property itself is kind of small. It's only 2 bedrooms, but there's like 36 acres on this thing. And I'm like, we need to build a whole experience with multiple cabins throughout, or trails, or you just gave me the idea of a little go-kart racing or something like that, right? Like that would be awesome. But it is zoned agricultural. So I think the value that somebody like you, Tyler, really brings to the equation is you're talking to so many different owners all around the country. You have ideas of how you can actually squeeze more out of the asset because you're just having more than conversations and more people. So I could see why somebody would want to come to you and be like, okay, I got this property. What do I do with it?
Yeah.
Now, any ideas that you do give them, I could see it being expensive to implement the plan, right? Because it's not for the faint of heart. It's like, okay, you want to do this, you want to create a super property, like this is what you've got to do. But this is going to be your return.
Yeah,
How do you
that's
think through
exactly
that?
right.
Yeah, how do you think through that for them, right? It's a special person too. I own some of the smaller stuff, and I found that the smaller stuff actually the ROI was great. because it was like small property and four couples, and it was just like the getaways, and they pay premium for an experience.
Yeah, I think the best thing that we do at Savvy is we show the results, right? We build case studies, we show people, we take videos, we show people the bookings that we get. When our property that we bought for 905,000 books for $2,000 a night, it shows you how quickly you're making all that money back, right? The mortgage payment is paid in the first day. Profit, expenses are paid in the second stay, and then the third, fourth, and fifth for the month are all profit, and feed the next one. And the great thing about that is when we're doubling down, give you a good example on that $905,000 property, that's still cash flowing today. We were able to pull 700,000 out of that property. So in fact, our cash on cash return on most of these investments nowadays is infinity. Right? We don't have any cash left in them because we're able to cash out more than what we actually even put into them. And then they still cash flow. They cash flow less for sure, right? If we have a $10,000 a month mortgage, they're going to cash flow less. But if we're doing 300,000 a year in rental revenue, it's definitely possible, right? Yeah, we've seen good success with it. I think show good examples, right? And whatever you're doing, build case studies, because that's going to be the best social proof for your clients to make them feel comfortable. Be really transparent. And here's what I always tell our staff, our agents: don't just be transparent when the good happens. You got to be transparent when the bad happens too, because that's where you really build trust with people, right? When you tell them no, when you tell them this didn't work out, that didn't work out, here's a negative side of the story. Here are the cons. You cannot, as a real estate agent or in any industry, I don't think, come in and paint an amazing picture of everything. On this podcast, I think, paint an amazing picture of everything that we're doing. There's a lot of places you have to be really careful. You got to be really careful with regulation. You got to be really careful with HOAs. You got to look at like occupancy limits, and are occupancy limits coming, septic limits and environmental concerns, parking, parties, neighbors, all these different things you have to pay attention to. So it's not all like, rainbows and roses all the time. It is a lot of detail work to make sure that you can actually do this. But if you can answer all those questions the right way and say no to the properties that don't work, then you build a lot of trust with your clients. So I think it's about building trust in the marketplace. And I think that Savvy's got really great trust in the marketplace overall. It's probably been the number one thing that we've done was build good trust in the marketplace.
You're in 30 markets now. Where primarily are you guys? Like, are you East Coast, West Coast, like middle, like all over?
Yeah, very, very heavy East Coast still. Florida is our number one state right now. Tennessee, the Smokies, our number one market. I still have a small team here in Asheville. We sell between 50 and 70 million a year in short-term rentals in Asheville. Poconos, Michael Klein is an amazing agent in the Poconos. He'll sell probably 50 million this year in the Poconos. So we're very, very heavy East Coast. We're looking at West Coast, but the numbers don't work as well. And I think that West Coast is likely an area where we'll see more on the property management side, the lifestyle asset side, which is a whole new realm for us to explore.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the temptation for you, Tyler, might be, how do you balance the cash machine, the agent business that you've built, right? I call that the cash machine, with the wealth machine, meaning you're going to continue to buy more assets and invest in more assets. And at some point, that portfolio might get so significant that you're like, okay, I'm going to spend more time going in this direction, developing, building. Have you thought through that yet? Or you have no interest in that?
We definitely do. My business partner, she does heavy into design and large scale renovation. So last year we bought a $4.4 million 50-acre parcel with 6 mirror cabins on it called the Mirror Hotel in Asheville. And we rebranded it Reflections. And we are building 6 caves and 6 tree houses on that piece of land. So we are getting there. We're doing some more experiential design and build work. Yeah, so that's going to be really cool. And I do think that there's a world like Asheville for us has always been really difficult to find great inventory. We're kind of taking existing inventory and turning it into something really good. So we'd like to do some new construction here. We're kind of looking for some good potential opportunities here and what we can do. But one thing at a time, right? I never want, like Alex Hormozy told you, like I never want a new business to replace the old one. That's poor financial planning, I think. And it's hard. That means you have to really structure the old business so well that you can leave it and go focus on the new thing and have that one still run. It takes years. It's very difficult. You have to have good staff and a good leadership team. And you have to think, what could destroy that? Like if 2 or 3 of my leaders left tomorrow, would that be destroyed? If so, then I'm not ready yet. Right? Like you have to have redundancy after redundancy in your team, and it's expensive. It's very difficult. You have to turn down. I mean, I could have taken so much money from Savvy so far, and I've never taken a dollar. All my money has come from my local Asheville sales, all my personal income, and my investments. And that's because I want to continue reinvesting, because I know if I can create this like immutable rock of a business that will never go anywhere, that has automatic lead gen built in because it has amazing trust in the marketplace, that's what I really want to build here.
I got it. I get it. I get it. Yeah, people don't understand the cost of building the infrastructure, right?
Yeah,
And they're not willing to. A lot of people are just not willing to do that. Yeah, interesting. Well, Tyler, this has been fascinating. This is awesome. I love taking a sneak peek into your mind, so much in just a short amount of time, which is impressive. I didn't ask you, like, what did you? I mean, you owned this other business before, but I hear a lot of deep business knowledge at a relatively young stage in your business life. Like, where did that come from? We'll just kind of end there. Where do you think that came from? Are you an avid reader, podcast? Like where? Because it's resonating deeply with me. But these are conversations I normally have with entrepreneurs that have been in the business twice the length that you've been in the business.
Yeah. I think for me, one, I can say I'm an avid learner. Not a big podcaster or YouTube guy. I find it maybe is a little too slow for me for learning. I like to read. I research anything and everything. But the number one thing that has led to all of this is just a firm belief that if someone else can do something, I can do it too. And I never let anything get in the way and say that I can't do it. If I can watch someone else do something, I know I can do it too. Especially when it comes to business, I feel really confident in that. Now, maybe if I'm watching somebody climb Everest, I'm going to look at a distance and for a while decide,
Like,
do I want to do that?
that's good for you. You do that. You
Yeah.
do you. Yeah.
But I know that anything I want to do, I can do it. And there are always better ways. There's no one out there that's perfect at the thing that they do. There are always improvements to be made. Look at this kid in the Olympics who's the quad god, right? The first person to ever land these like quad axles in the world. Like this is, and you look at like Usain Bolt, like the fastest person who's ever run. But then they break these records, and then suddenly you see 5 or 10 more people come and break these records, right?
Yeah.
So it's not that that you can't go further. It's just who's going to break that mold first. And then you see immediately when somebody breaks that mold, a bunch more people break it. So is that skill, or is it all belief and mindset? I'm a huge believer that it's all belief and mindset. And that's a great thing that I was gifted with a tough childhood, was that if someone else can do something, I can do it too. And I'm not going to lean on anyone else. I don't need anything in my life. I can just go do it. And that's led to most of my success.
Do you remember? Do you remember when you were a child and you thought, like I remember being in high school and having that conversation, and I was like, if that, I was an athlete in college. I was like, if that person could do it, like I can. Like why not me? Like why not me? I'm deserving of it. I'm willing to pay the price in order to make it happen, and I want that. Do you remember when that happened for you?
Don't, but I can remember I was in a school bus one time. We were coming back from a field trip, and I remember looking at all the businesses on the side of the road, and I have a funny name which I did use for my first couple of businesses in my late teens and early 20s. My name is Tyler Coon, and you put that together, you have Tycoon, right? And as a kid, I always loved playing Roller Coaster Tycoon in this entrepreneurial business game. But I remember in the bus watching the businesses go by, a laundromat and thinking that's going to be Tycoon laundromat, and a gas station thinking that's going to be Tycoon gas station. Despite that, I don't own any gas stations or laundromats nowadays, but I think I'm in a pretty good place. So I don't know where that came from. I think most people that look at a childhood like I had, they maybe look at it and wonder, like, how is that possible? I don't know. But
Tyler, did you
I'm
come from,
glad that it did.
we didn't explore your childhood, but did you come from a broken home? Did you, it sounds like maybe you were longing for a business when at a young age because money was tight. Like, help me understand that thinking there.
Yeah, good question. I don't know what it came from. And even nowadays, like I don't look at a business and think of like how much money can it make me? I look at it and think of like how much can I do, and what more can I do? How can I do more than other people have done? Can I get more innovative? Are these people really doing it the best that can be done? I think in terms of efficiency more than anything else in the world, not
Mm,
like how much money can I make? And I think that really works well. I did come from a broken home and ended up with my grandparents who raised me, and then they adopted six other kids. So it was kind of lonely. I moved out when I was 15, got my first apartment. So it was always very, very independent after all these
mhm.
things happened, and I think that's led to a lot. But I'm still breaking apart some of the pieces and some of the whys behind all those things. But sometimes I'm afraid to look in the box and actually break apart the pieces because maybe some of it is just what was meant to happen.
It's meant to happen, bro. Right? It's like I got goosebumps like just thinking about it. It's like we're all forged in fire, different types of fire. Some of you, some people are pushed into the fire, other people choose to go into the fire. But we're forged through fire. And so what comes out on the other side is something beautiful. If you have the right mindset and the right thinking and the right belief system behind it, right? Are you a glass half full or half empty? And that matters. That matters because the way you think about the world shapes your world. And with
Yeah,
that, Tyler,
I think for me, I'm definitely a glass half full type of
yeah,
guy. I always look at everything as an optimist. I never look at it as a pessimist. It's funny, I had a staff member tell me like, "Hey, you don't realize in this situation, I need to give you some context." And I said, context is just excuses. Like if somebody's unhappy, you just figure out why they're unhappy, whether they're right or wrong, whether you did everything perfect. It means that there's some adjustment that could be made. So don't get down on yourself just because of that. Get in the mindset of like, hey, there's opportunity for growth here. And that's exciting because if you don't have any opportunity for growth, that's when you die. That's when there's nothing left. And so for me, the opportunity for growth is always exciting. And I never get down on myself about if I fail because that's just showing me like there's room for growth here. And that's so cool to me.
yeah, yeah. You wanna just continue to build, right? That's such a powerful way to think about everything. And yet so many people hit a stumbling block and they think that it is failure when in reality it is just the world telling you that there's a different, better way to do it. So just find that different, better way to do it. Yeah. Tyler, dude, this has been awesome. I could keep picking your brain about how you think about things. Thank you for sharing time with us on the Income Flip podcast. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do it?
Best way to do it is www.savvy.realty/Tyler. And let's book a call, have a chat.
Cool, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rob. Good to see you today.
Good seeing you.